Hello, you extraordinary X-Men fans. It's Jerry Rasco, and yes, that means we are back to talk more X-Men together today. We are going to be looking specifically at X-Men number 14, which does have the first appearance of another sort of, I'll say, new character. You'll see when we get there. So very excited about that piece of it. Of course, I definitely want to take a moment to thank everybody who has been supporting the channel. It means a great deal to me to see everybody who has been adding to the subscriber list. It is phenomenal, and thank you all so much for that support. We are making great strides towards the goal of 1,000 subscribers that we set out at the beginning of the year, and that is all thanks to you. If you are new here, if you found the video for the first time and you are not a subscriber, here is why you might want to think about clicking that subscribe button. Number one, it is 100% free. It costs you nothing to click a button. It's not like a YouTube membership, for example. This is just a subscription. And when you do that, to celebrate when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I am giving away 6 pieces of original one-of-a-kind artwork. Each one celebrates one of the review series here on the channel. So when you hit that subscribe button, you are part of the group where you could be one of the 6 randomly drawn subscribers to win this artwork. So let me show you what you have the chance of winning when you click that subscribe button. Number one, we have the Amazing Spider-Man. We, of course, have the X-Men. We have the Incredible Hulk. We have the Avengers. We have Captain America, and the brand new launched a series here on the channel as of the recording of this video with his solo series review. And then the last one, which will be coming out soon, is the Fantastic Four. So with all of these pieces of artwork, like I said, you could be a lucky winner just by clicking that subscribe button. The art is free. Even the shipping to you will be free. So just go ahead and click that button, subscribe, and help us out with the channel and the algorithm. Greatly appreciate it. That all out of the way, let's get over to this comic. It's a different one, so let's go over and check it out. Okay, so here is the cover to X-Men number 14, and if you are a fan of the X-Men or you're familiar with their history, this is probably a familiar scene or a familiar cover. It's certainly something that has been reprinted a number of times in different media. I've seen it in, when you see history books that talk about the history of Marvel Comics, the history of comics. This is one that you'll see often. Obviously, it is right out there front and center. We are seeing the first appearance of the Sentinels. So, again, if you're familiar with the X-Men, the Sentinels play a big role in the X-Men and their storyline moving forward for decades. These are robots that are designed to do nothing but hunt mutants. And so an interesting addition to the X-Men universe and the X-Men lore, and we see it right here for the first time. So before we talk about the obvious thing, I'm curious to see if you note it. Drop a comment when I call it out to let me know, did you see it before or did you know this? But let's talk about the composition. Obviously, you have this big figure looming over Professor Xavier, the X-Men coming in through the window. I do find Jean Grey swinging on a rope a la Spider-Man or Daredevil a little strange. I would think maybe put her climbing in the window where Angel is and have Angel flying in the background since he's the one character that can fly. Just throwing that out there. This cover is a Jack Kirby cover. It has all the hallmarks of Jack Kirby's figure work, the flooring of this sort of pseudo technical, circles, squares, all kinds of geometric shapes to show technology. It's supposed to be taking place in a television studio. This is a pretty sci-fi, futuristic television studio. So it's Jack Kirby, and interestingly enough, it is inked by Wally Wood. So I'm not going to get into the history of Wally Wood right now. Wally Wood was a very well-known, famous artist of the age in comics. I would argue, again, a little controversial maybe, depending on who you're talking to, but also in a way very well-respected. People, I think, across the board would argue that Wally Wood was a very skilled and talented artist, despite some of the other issues that he had in his own personal life. So here's the thing. The question, did you notice? It's backwards. This cover is backwards. How do I know it is backwards? Because if you look at the Sentinels are numbered. This is Sentinel number 1. The 1 is backwards. So the original art of this was drawn the other way. The original art had the Sentinel coming from left to right, so Xavier would have been over here. So the whole thing would have been flipped. Very interesting choice then to flip it. That would have been done at an editorial level as they took the art and then prepped the cover with the trade dress, meaning the title, the Among Us Stalk the Sentinels blurb, that kind of stuff. So very interesting there that they would turn and flip that and then not correct it. I guess they figured nobody would notice. So again, drop in the comments. Let me know, did you notice that this was backwards before I mentioned it? So otherwise, yeah, like I said, I think it's certainly an iconic cover. Personally, I always felt like the hands and the arms were a little stretchy. They're a little too long based on the waist and the size, the proportions of the rest of the Sentinel. But they are coming out towards us overhead. So, I mean, there's a little bit of foreshortening going on there, but I don't know. It always felt like the arms were a little too stretchy for me. But again, highly iconic. And the last thing I'll note here is they've added now on sale monthly. My understanding was that the book had gone monthly a little while ago, but there's a big blurb at the end here about how the comic is now monthly. So maybe I was mistaken in my research before, but it's taken the place of the angel across the top of the logo. So over in the corner box, we have the other 4. We're missing the angel. So there we go. There's the cover. As we always talk about at this stage of the game, this is a scanned PDF copy of the comic. So we do not have the funds to have every issue of all these series in our hands that we can look at real copies. But Marvel was kind enough to go ahead in the early 2000s and scan all of these and then put them onto CD-ROM or DVD-ROMs that we can then view here on our computer. And this is great. It's as close to the original as we can get, but still being digital, allowing us to go in and highlight, zoom, minimize, or zoom in, zoom out, all that kind of stuff. So I love the format because it is pretty much as close as we'll get to the original comic at this stage. Let's talk very quickly about the creative team. This comic is from 1965. We have Stan Lee is still writing, of course, the script. Jack Kirby is doing layouts. We've been talking about that a lot through this series. So if you're familiar, great. If you're not familiar, you might want to check out some of the previous issues. But very quickly, it just means that Jack Kirby is drawing a very simple sort of storyboard to tell you how the pages should be organized. How many panels, where the figures should be, but all very, very rough. No details, just sort of rough bubble kind of figures and shapes and stuff like that. And then the penciler is credited as Jay Gavin. That is a pen name used by Werner Roth. We saw Werner Roth previously on the book here. And again, also inks by Vince Colletta, same as we saw previously as well. So if you want to see the history of them and a little bit about their backstory, you might want to go back on the previous 2 issues and you'll see where I cover that. So we start out here, real quick, which should be pretty quick, story recap. The reason everybody is banged up, you see the Beast is on crutches, everybody is going through basically the 1960s version of physical therapy. It's because they all got beat up by the Juggernaut. So the Juggernaut made his first appearance. The team took a heck of a beating before finally Professor Xavier was able to stop his stepbrother. And so now we're seeing the end of this recuperation period. So there's your story plot line that we're caught up in. So let's talk about this splash page. We're jumping into the story. That part is good. Some time has gone by. In terms of the composition of the page, it's nice. We have a overhead shot. We're kind of looking down on everybody, including the angel. We're slightly above the angel. But I do like the idea that because he's up higher on the page and closer to us, we can spread those wings out. It's been one of my pet peeves of so many of these early X-Men issues is you have a character like the Angel with these great wings, which are an awesome design element. And if you draw wings well, it becomes really, really nice. It's something that really stands out. And it's very seldom that we get to see them spread out like this. Even in this issue, you'll see over and over, they're just sort of folded up in this sort of roundish shape, kind of the way a bird would have their wing tucked against their side. So great to see the wings spread out. That part is good. You get the crazy technology going on everywhere, again, which just sort of helps establish the space, which is fine. That part is all very good. The only thing, and we will be talking a lot about sort of the plot and stuff in this issue, because I think it does impact it a lot. There's a lot of what I said is unnecessary, mundane things in this issue. I want to see these Sentinels. I want to see the X-Men, of course, battle the Sentinels. But instead, we get a lot of mundane day-to-day stuff. So it's very much like this setup for what's to come, where it doesn't have to be. We could have easily gotten to the splash page here and had the X-Men finishing a Danger Room session and just a comment on, yep, you guys are all back to full health. I'm glad you all healed up quickly. You know what I mean? There's a way we could kind of move through it very fast to emphasize that there's time that's passed from issue 13 to 14. Not a big deal. Instead, we have the splash page, and then we have a whole page and a third of going through each person to go, hey, look, how's your leg feel? Beast's leg feels good. Iceman is maximizing his cold powers again. Cyclops' optic blasts are at full power. I mean, there's a simpler way, a more efficient storytelling way to do it. One of the things I do understand, and I've quoted this a number of times, my understanding of this quote goes back to former editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, which says that every issue is someone's first issue. So on one hand, you do have some kind of explanation of their powers and stuff a little bit with this. So maybe you're assuming this is the first time anybody's seen him and they don't understand what everybody can do. But again, you could do that with a wrap up in a Danger Room session in the splash page, and then boom, you're moving right into the story of what's happening. Just my 2 cents. The other thing, I pointed out a few other times in my notes, but one of the problems I had with the previous issue and kind of in this issue as well is there is sort of very vague, very nebulous backgrounds all throughout. So here we see the Beast. He's leaping up onto this trapeze bar to show, that he's fully healed. There's scientific equipment. There's gears and whatever this stuff is. There's literally a carpet on the floor. And yet when we cut, all that stuff is gone, and it's this empty, bare orange walls and a white floor. I want to see more of what's going on here. Now, as we know, we talked about a little bit, Vince Colletta, the inker, was known for simplifying panels to make his work easier and faster. It's possible that some of that background was drawn in beautiful detail by penciler Warner Roth and removed by the inker. Then again, we don't have any copy or visual of what the original art looked like, so maybe it never got drawn. I don't know. But it needs it. Just in general, this vague white background, especially when you have a character like Iceman who's all white, surrounded by white ice. Let's have some background stuff. You don't have to draw every single thing, but enough of a hint of a background that it would make sense. So actually, like over here, this first 2 panels where we cut scenes actually is pretty good in terms of some of the background details. The transition is bad. So what I mean by that is the X-Men, the last thing they talk about is Professor Xavier is going to give him some time off. Go home. Remember, this is a school, so it's supposed to be like a boarding school. So go home, visit friends, visit family, take a break. And they're super excited. Now we cut to this guy and news press around, and this some kind of industrialist and inventor is making his big plea about the threat of mutants and what he's going to do about it. So when we cut, he's got, this kind of funky device on his desk. He's got this sort of circuit outline design behind him. Little details that are very good. When he is talking about how important this is, he slams his fist on nothing. There's no desk there. There's no nothing. So what is he hitting his fist on? You have to do it. If he's sitting at his desk and you want him to slam his hand on the desk, then you have to draw the desk, which is fine. You could draw the edge of the desk right there, and then the newspaper reporters are still behind it. That's perfectly fine. But here, it's just literally hitting in the air. And then also, like, I love this. He's talking there. He's explaining, like, mutants are dangerous. They're here. They're more dangerous than any other kind of weapon, and they're just waiting to strike. They're going to destroy us. So even as we speak, we have to, they're planning their plots. We have to strike them first. And everybody's like, well, this is great. And then all of a sudden, they print this newspaper article, and we'll see with Xavier, like, all of a sudden, it's way bigger than what we saw in 3 panels. The last thing, there's something about the face here in panel 3 that just struck me as odd, and I don't know why. I don't know what it is that makes me say that it's strange. The only thing I can think of is there's a little bit of a lack of shading under, like, the nose. Now, I understand you've got this mustache, so that causes some issues, where it's blending together, and what's shadow, what's mustache. There's a little bit under the lip, not much, a little tiny bit under the chin. I don't know, maybe it should be moodier. Maybe it needs more shadows, since this guy is obviously our villain of the story and incredibly dramatic, maybe some dramatic lighting. I don't know, there's just something about it that seems very simplistic, but not simplistic in a good way. So I don't know what it is about it that just strikes me as odd, but it took me out as I was going through reading the story and then writing my notes, to a point where I had to make a note and go, there's something about that face is just odd, and I don't know why. So I'll say this, and this goes back to, if you go to, obviously, our Spider-Man series, the press plays a much, much bigger role in Spider-Man because he interacts with the Daily Bugle and J. Jonah Jameson all the time, right? So we know that J. Jonah Jameson has a vendetta against Spider-Man, and he uses his newspaper to forward that. And I always say that the press are, like, so fickle. 1 minute, Spidey is saving everybody, and they love him, and it's great. And then the next minute, when J. Jonah Jameson makes some outlandishly impossible to prove claim, everybody turns on him. Well, here it's kind of the same way. This guy has just come out and gone, hey, newspaper, writers, guess what? These mutants are terrible. They're trying to kill us. They're going to destroy the world. They're going to enslave us. They're going to turn us into, they're going to eat us, like crazy stuff. And these guys just run with it and go, yeah, absolutely. Without fact checking, without going through and saying, what is this guy's motives? What would be the reason for him being so, adamant about this statement? It's just one of those things where everything is knee-jerk reaction, both for the heroes, for villains, for everybody. And I don't know, for somebody as a in 2026 reading these old comics, obviously these are 60-plus-year-old comics, it just strikes me as strange sometimes, but I get it. We have to move the plot ahead. We have to move forward with stuff. We don't have time to often have as nuanced a story as we like. This is the one thing where it would be better to play this out over 2 or 3 issues of this building fear and hatred and concern and misinformation until it boils up to, confrontation. Here, it's just in a matter of minutes, the world is anti-mutant. Here again, this is what I'm talking about, this mundane stuff. 9 panels, 3 panels with showing how Angel has to hide his wings, how Cyclops has to take off his visor and use his sunglasses, which we already know all this. If you've read any issue of X-Men up to here, you know this. This is not new information. And then the Beast, we actually literally have to watch him wrapping his feet, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. His foot is large and longer than an average human's foot of equal size, equal height, right? He's binding the width of it, but it's still long. And then he goes into this whole thing about his hinged shoes, which I guess would let his toes move around. It has nothing to do with the plot. The whole contraption that the Angel has strapping his wings to his back has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever. None of this stuff is important. It really isn't. I don't care. You can show the Beast in street clothes and understand that he has to take, they're specially modified. Or we've seen the Angel's contraption that he wears to bind his wings to his back. We've seen that. We've seen Scott in his special glasses all the time. This is nothing new. So I don't understand why we're wasting a whole page on it. And then here, the whole team slowly breaks up, meaning that everybody is leaving. Jean's got some luggage. Looks like maybe she's heading home. Warren's going to drive her to the train station. Beast and Bobby, Hank and Bobby are going to take a bus, head into the city. And Scott is left to his own devices. They're just sort of walking around because he has no family. He's an orphan. But why? We're taking all this time to explain it, to kind of, again, maybe if someone's new and they don't understand that Scott really does have a crush on Jean, and Jean sort of does have a crush on Scott too, and neither one of them is acting on it. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of silly stuff. It doesn't work for me that well. Again, we're wasting a lot of time in a comic that needs a lot of time. There's a nice coloring error here with Jean. So you can see, because you see the yellow in her face and the yellow in her hair. So obviously the red coloration over that section was blocked off. And so that's why you don't get the pink of the skin tone and the red of the hair. So a little coloring error there. Again, one of those things where, honestly, your only option once you find it that it's been printed is you can pulp every issue, which means literally destroy every issue and reprint it at cost, or you just move on and go, it happens. And that's exactly what we did here. So comics were disposable. That's why they were printed on cheap newsprint paper. They were not meant to exist for 50, 60 years in a collection in prime condition. They were meant to be read and folded and bent and wrinkled and then eventually disposed of and moved on. So here we go. Xavier reads the paper. And so from a 3-panel discussion, this turns into some sort of multi-tier diatribe in a newspaper talking about how, with crazy artist renditions that have nothing to do with anything, that they're going to enslave the human race. They're going to use them for labor and gladiators. And I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So Xavier's not going to stand for it. He's going to try to counteract this guy's claims if he can. The shading on Xavier's face here, I get what the attempt was, and it's a solid attempt. The problem is it doesn't execute well. So you've got the window behind him. So it's like it's at night. It's the shadow of the window frame is being played behind him. That adds for nice drama. That part is good. But you've got these very, I don't know, hairy was a term I use sometimes, line work to show the rendering. But they're not, yes, they are sort of, it is a gradient from a dark black into a white or the light area, but I don't know that it follows any rhyme or reason. So here's what I mean. Where's the light source in this? Is the light source from the left of the page? Well, this eye is all shadowed and there's a shadow on the chin. So maybe it's casting more of a shadow on this side of the nose. That part's possible. But there's also a rim light on this side. His ear's not in shadow. So there's light over here as well. So is this multi-light source? We're trying to do multi-light source. If that's the case, there's light here. It should be hitting the nose here. So there would be less shadow here. It just doesn't work for me. The line work, I don't know if it's too thick, too thin. This is not a great use of hatch lines for shading in this particular instance. If you want to go with dramatic lighting, just go with real solid, bold black shadows, and it would work just fine. I get to the next day, so a day's gone by, and Xavier is going to be on TV debating Dr. Trask. And again, all this stuff, the only thing I could think of is when I look at like this family sitting around watching the TV, this part where Trask stands up to talk about his plan, that he really has no plans here to debate. He just showed up to make a big demonstration. So he still hasn't explained his reason behind his unmitigated fears, other than he's just an incredibly fearful, crazy person with delusions. But yeah, there's something about this artwork that just is very simple. I don't know if I would excuse me. I don't know if I would go so far as to say amateurish, but I don't know. It reminds me of sort of like illustrated books for young children, the kind of books you would have read when you were in first, second, third grade, learning to read illustrated books. It's just very bland, very open, very again kind of amateurish. I don't know. I don't have a better way to describe it. So Dr. Lang here is like, look. I'm not here to debate whether mutants are good or bad. I've already decided, and watch this. I've got the solution. And here we go. The first appearance of the Sentinels. And remember, this is a Jack Kirby book, meaning that he laid out all of the pages. And for sure, the Sentinels are a Jack Kirby design. I mean, everything about them. The little pattern on the front, the stuff around the head, the shape of the face, where the shadows are on these weird humanish faces. I mean, the whole thing just screams Kirby. The only problem that I have here is throughout the book, the Sentinels' scale changes dramatically. So remember, Xavier is sitting in his wheelchair. So he is not standing up. He is sitting. So he is crippled. If he was to stand, you would assume he'd be maybe up to just short of the shoulder of this Sentinel, right? I think that would be reasonable. Well, unless it's the smallest Sentinel and they all appear to be the same thing, all of a sudden, when they stand next to their creator, if this guy's 6 feet tall, these things are 10 to 12 feet tall. Versus if Xavier standing was maybe close to 6 feet tall, maybe these are 8 feet tall. So all of a sudden, you're changing your scale dramatically. Same thing here. And immediately, of course, everything goes wrong. It is your classic sci-fi trope. The crazy inventor has developed a sentient machine which immediately turns on him because it knows that it's smarter and can make better decisions, and humanity, even though humanity created the robot, the only way to protect humanity from humanity is to destroy humanity. And boom, you've got your AI logic that we all fear in today's world, right? But Lang, falls prey to his machines immediately. If you're familiar or not, if you're a sci-fi fan like I am, one of my big loves is Doctor Who, the British television show Doctor Who, featuring the time-traveling doctor and his companions. They travel through time and space, and his number one enemy are these creatures called the Daleks. And the Daleks are a combination of a sort of mutated organic being in this shell. But it's the whole idea. They were created as weapons, and of course they immediately turn on their creator because they know better. And they're not just going to kill the enemy, they're going to kill everybody. So to me, it really, excuse me, it reminded me of your classic sci-fi trope a la Doctor Who. So they get Xavier. This face here isn't bad as he calls to the X-Men to come help him. So that's not so bad there. That's a pretty good face. And again, scale. Like the Sentinel that's holding him. The hand here is not huge. The hand it's a big thumb. It's certainly bigger than my hand on my shoulder, but it's not like 5 times the size. It's maybe 1.5 times. Where later we'll see a hand is 3 or 4 feet high. So just be consistent with that kind of stuff. It's not hard to do. I have always taken the task of being consistent with my art. When I create my comics, what I do is I take them and I either have the previous page is up on my drawing board next to it, so I can always look back. And then when I'm done with them, I put them into a portfolio so I can very easily flip back and look at anything that I drew earlier to make sure I'm doing it the same later. Again, more mundane stuff. Bobby and Hank are at this weird poetry coffee shop that we've seen a couple of times, which is, again, has no merit, no influence on the plot whatsoever. It's just a moment of them being socially awkward and weird, and then running out and changing into their costumes, and then going to Xavier. Same thing. Angel sits down for literally before his butt is even all the way down on the seat, sitting to dinner with his parents. Oh, I gotta go. Sorry, I just thought of something. And then off they go. Here's where, again, if you're writing your plot and this is all part of your plot and your story, wouldn't it be a lot simpler if the X-Men were, instead of all scattered to the 4 winds, what if they were waiting in the green room? Or what if they were waiting in the audience? And Xavier is like, okay, guys, sneak, tells him telepathically, sneak out, get into costume. And they do. You still have a lot of the same beats in terms of getting into costume, coming in, fighting the Sentinels. Instead, you've taken a bunch of time to separate the team out, show them doing stuff on their own, only to bring them back in the same issue. It's a waste of time. So Xavier, so the Sentinels take off with Dr. Lang. And again, just like every every evil robot, every sentient robot trope in sci-fi, they want to build more of themselves. They don't know how to build more of themselves. So they need the creator to help them build more of themselves until they don't need him anymore. So that's what they're doing. One guy freaks out and takes off. Xavier cannot mentally control him. And as the Sentinel tries to blast him, Xavier saves him by somehow knocking him down. So this is where I go, is he telekinetic? Like, we know that Xavier can read minds. He can control minds. Did he mentally control the guy's mind to fall down? Did he stop the sensation of his legs so that he couldn't, they went numb and he fell down? I don't know. But it doesn't, sometimes Xavier's, and this whole issue is a perfect example of sometimes Xavier's powers are just this deus ex machina that can do anything, anytime you need them to, and are not consistent at all. Here's the other thing. The Sentinels are designed to hunt and destroy mutants. They were created, it says here, they were created to be the guardians of mankind, and to guard them, they have to rule them. Okay, why would it shoot at the guy running away? Wouldn't it blast the door? Wouldn't it grab him, tie him up? I mean, there's something. Why is it killing the humans it's supposed to protect? Unless, I mean, it's obviously a flawed AI logic, but there has to be some sort of logic, and there isn't. Iceman and Beast show up, and of course, just trying to tackle the thing or kick the thing isn't going to work. It's a big giant robot. And again, scale, right? 1 minute, it's pretty tall. The next minute, it's humongously tall. To where, look how huge these feet are as Bobby is toppling it like a giant. Whereas before, it certainly was not that large. And then Iceman gets hit by a heat ray. I've said this before. This is a show don't tell medium. Show me the blast. Show me the hand of the Sentinel looming, and then the blast coming and hitting Bobby and him, and then falling down. You get rid of some of this stuff. You get rid of the coffee shop nonsense. You get rid of some of this, and we have plenty of room to include that in the story. So, same thing here, Scott. Now, other than showing how the public is turning on the mutants, because in the past, sometimes they would show up and they'd be like, oh, it's the X-Men. Then they treated them like any other superhero team. They're like the Avengers. They're like the Fantastic Four. And now all of a sudden, because of one newspaper article, the crowd of people is literally going to chase a kid down because somebody called him a mutant. It's true, but... And then, again, I apologize. I know this series is more about the artwork, but the plot is so hard to get through that it really does take away from what we're talking about from the art. And that is, so we know that Cyclops, his blast, anytime he opens his eyes, the optic blast is going to come out. If he wears his glasses, that stops it. His visor stops it. Why would you have sunglasses that are not strapped down, firm to your face, something where it would wiggle, and then all of a sudden your optic blast sneaks out and blows a hole through a taxi? Like, I mean, you know what your limitation is. I would think you could manage that. Okay. Now, excuse me, tickle. I did note here, this is where it dawned on me. I realized, and I went back and checked. In this issue, the costumes, the X-Men's costumes, are back to like a yellowless, sleeveless shirt or jersey pulled over the sort of black or blue tights. That's how I look at it. It's shorts over tights. It's like it's a blue or black bodysuit, and the yellow goes over the top of it, right? And in the previous issue, it was drawn where it was more of a tunic, where it's the yellow in the front and the back, and the sides were open. You could see that black and blue area down the sides. That is not here in this issue. So the costume is being drawn differently again. And this is what I was talking about with the fist that's really, really large. So again, scale. We saw this one particular robot. We've seen where it wasn't overly huge before. It was holding Xavier's shoulders pretty easily. It wasn't like the hand. This hand would encompass Cyclops' entire torso. I mean, it goes up above his knee. This thing is 3 feet tall from the ground. So again, scale. This Cyclops face, super Jack Kirby. From the teeth, the angle of the mouth, the lines of the nose, like this is a super Jack Kirby face. It does make me wonder if maybe Werner Roth, because the art does seem pretty different from some of the previous issue, and it makes me wonder if maybe he was directed to kind of follow Jack's lines a little more. That was not uncommon at the time. So Beast and Cyclops are unable to defeat the Sentinel until it just stops and falls over for no reason, which makes no sense whatsoever. The rest of the Sentinels left this one here to guard these humans. He's fighting mutants, which is his thing. Nothing is injured or stopped him, and he just falls down for no reason whatsoever. Again, just bad writing. We're written in a corner. The X-Men can't stop it. Cyclops and Beast are in a pickle, and so it just keels over. I mean, have Cyclops blast it in such a way that it, he was able to hit it. He was able to damage enough of it. Oh, I hit the battery pack inside and knocked it loose, and it's depowered, but it won't be depowered for long. Anyway, there's tons of ways to get out of it other than this, which is just really silly. Again, here's another Xavier face that I want to talk about because it's weird. And it has to do with the line work here. Dramatic lighting. Great. Okay. Big shadow on this side. So the light's over here. So why is there a big thick shadow on this side of his forehead? The light is coming. Come on. There we go. Light is coming from this side. There should be no big thick shadow here. It would be on the opposite side of the head. Your big dark shadows are always going to be on the opposite side. Why is it dark under this eye, not dark under this eye when, again, the light is coming from our left to right? The nose is catching a shadow. That's good. The lower lip and chin, that part is all fine. The rest of it does not work. And then the line work, because it's a fairly small drawing. Remember, this is like panel 6 of a 6-panel page, which means this whole thing is, the original art is 5 inches by 5 inches reduced. So all this little line work here of this hatching just turns into a very muddy approach. It doesn't look like fading from dark to light. It just gets muddy. So not a great rendering approach there. As Angel is flying towards the television studio, he has not gotten there yet. He sees all these Sentinels. He does not know what they are, but they recognize him as a mutant, and so they begin blasting at him, of course, and he just keeps ducking. So this page is pretty good. This panel here, very nice. This panel of Angel flying around, dodging these beams of energy being shot at him, that's pretty cool. But again, here's what I'm saying, like, spread those wings. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? What am I saying here? Sorry, looking at my notes. Yeah, it's not bad, but extend the wings. You've got a big wide panel here. Show those wings extended. Draw them in. Make them look cool. Instead, we just get this, like I said, this little curled up wing. This little curled up wing. That's just how most people seem to draw it at this stage, where I want to see them spread out. Sentinels continue to attack. Angel begins to avoid, and then all of a sudden he's pulled to the ground. Again, weird stuff. Like, so this is all a plot contrivance, because it turns out Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, is in the train, sees Angel avoiding the robots, and uses her telekinetic power to pull him to the train. Oh, okay. If you can grab and pull him to the train, couldn't you push the robot away from him from that distance? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. And then do we need, the panel of, well, I better put on my costume. And if you saw what was happening and you pulled Angel to you, wouldn't you have been putting on your costume the minute you saw what was going on? You saw your teammate and your classmate in his costume fighting robots? Just, again, throwing it out there. We cut back to the television studio with the dead robot. Good scene change here on a page turn. I'll give you that. That part is nice. That works. But again, we have a number of very super vague backgrounds, and you get that all throughout. Obviously, this is the sky, but like, again, here where this fight, this random orange background, there's just white. There's nothing here. What happened to the other people? What happened to, like, yeah. So as of this page, Xavier's talking about he's got the crowd mentally calm. He uses the term tranquilization, tranquilized. From here, they just kind of disappear here. Okay, they're here. Now he kind of lets them go, and he's like, okay, we're cool. And then I guess they take off. And he says, yeah, now, okay, so now that we're alone here. But fair enough. But overall, just very vague. Just a plain white, drawn on white, nothing. No floor, no walls, no television cables, no wreckage, no nothing. So, again, not great. The scale has changed again. So when we saw here, I mean, this thing was huge. We saw Iceman. Like, look how big these feet are compared to Iceman, right? And now that it's down, the Cyclops is kneeling and the feet aren't even as big as he is. So just all over the place. And then I did have a question. So this, again, kind of silly. All the Sentinels are numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. you can see there's 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. All those kinds of things. Number 1, number 6. This one is 3R. Why is it 3R? What's the R for? Why isn't it just number 3? Why would that one be 3R? It's never explained. It's noted very clearly that this is 3R. It's drawn on his tummy the whole time. Why is that one 3R and the rest are just numerals? I don't understand. Let's see here. Oh, and this is again where I'm talking about Xavier's mental powers are super nebulous. So obviously he can read minds. This is a robot. He has said a couple times, like when it first grabs him, he's like, I can't affect it. It's not a human mind. Now all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm picking up all kinds of clues. It's got a thought. It's thinking about where it wants to go. It wants to go back to its home. And I'm picking up a clear image of where that is. How? First of all, is it deactivated? It fell down. It's not moving. It's not continuing to fight. But it's somehow still processing inside. There's no rhyme or reason for it. And then, why is Xavier reading the mind of a robot? Have the Beast figure it out. Have the Beast be pulling its head apart and looking at the electronics and go, hey, you know what? I think it's got a homing signal. I bet we could tap into this with Cerebro and follow the signal back to its base. Let's do that. I mean, it's not rocket science. The thing that I actually liked here, so they're talking about this thing called Master Mold, and they don't really explain what Master Mold is. We'll find out over time. But they go back to the lab, and this is where Trask originally built the Sentinels. And you see this device here, this sort of weird dome with these circles and energy coming into it and that kind of stuff. If you go back here to where we see him talking at his desk and freaking out, that's what this reminds me of. There's a sort of glass dome. There's little spheres in there with wires coming into it. So I'm wondering if this is sort of a small scale model of what eventually becomes the key to his Sentinel construction laboratory, right? So that's it. However, obviously, the X-Men are not going to give up because Professor Xavier has read a robot's mind and knows where to go. So they drive out there in their car and try to find this base, but they don't see where it is until, boom, it pops up out of the ground and starts attacking. This is, in my opinion, a bad ending. Here's why. The figures are so far down in the foreground and so small. I literally turned the page and went, oh, wait, that's it. Like, you're waiting for another panel after this of them reacting or something happening. It's a weird place to end. And obviously we know why it does. It's because they ran out of room. That's it. That's all the pages we have for here, and we're going to continue. But if we got rid of all of that mundane stuff about putting on their clothes and the Beast's shoes and Cyclops' glasses and dumb stuff like that, the base weapons could pop out of the ground. Then we would have one more panel of the X-Men getting blown off their feet, from looking at the other direction and their reactions to these laser beams being blasted at them. And oh no, what are we going to do? And maybe you cut to the end of Xavier going, oh no, what have I gotten my students into? And then you end. That's how you do it. This is a bad ending. So, yeah. I'm going to say, and I don't say it too often, thank goodness this is the end of the book. Let's cut over to the desk and let's wrap this one up. So there is X-Men number 14. In case you couldn't tell, far from my favorite issue of the series so far. I get it. It's key because of the inclusion of the Sentinels. And we will see the Sentinels portrayed much cooler, much more dangerous. We are heading towards, I know, patience, we'll get there. We are heading towards when the great Neil Adams takes over the art on the book. And there is a great sequence and storyline with the Sentinels that he does that really helps to emphasize what those Sentinels, the danger that they pose for the X-Men. So that's when we get there, we'll really see what can be done. In the meantime, this is crazy. It's all over the place. The plot is just insane. The artwork is mediocre at best. It's very plain. Like I said, I hate to use the term. There are a few points where I found it to be very amateurish. And yeah, it's not coherent, thoughtful storytelling. If you disagree, by all means, let me know. I'd love to hear your comments. And this is the thing. This is not my favorite. I didn't care for it. It might be somebody's absolute favorite issue of X-Men of all time. If you love it, great. Tell me why. Explain it to me. Win me over. I'd love to hear your comments. As far as a rating, I'm giving this a 4 out of 10, and I think I'm being generous, and that's mostly because it's such a key issue featuring the first appearance of the Sentinels. If it wasn't for that, if it was just any old plain robots, this would be much lower. So that's my ranking. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and then we'll see you right back here next week for hopefully better, but definitely more X-Men. Thanks.